Good morning, ladies. It's Dr. Kira Lourie, and I'm so excited to be here with Dr. Lorraine Maita. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Maita, you got it
Yes.
right.
And we are two peas in a pod. I'm a naturopathic doctor. Lorraine is a medical doctor, but we both work from an integrative perspective with oncology, cancer. I specialize in breast cancer, but Dr. Lorraine does other forms of cancer. So we're going to have a really wonderful conversation that's going to be enlightening for all of you. So welcome. I'm so happy you're here, Dr. Lorraine.
Well, I think this is a topic. I mostly prevent cancer. That's
Okay.
but people who've had cancer come to me because they're miserable and they don't know what to do, and they feel terrible. They don't want to live like that. And the same basic principles apply. And I've
Exactly.
learned so much about not only cancer prevention, but also once you've had it, how to prevent recurrence, as well as how to, care for your body and your mind and your spirit in a different way, because it's all connected.
100%. So I also agree in prevention, but my community, the cat the cat
Right.
has left the
I
barn
hear
already,
you.
so to
I hear you.
speak. But let's talk a few minutes about prevention because, I have a lot of women in the group of young survivors who are concerned. Um, I know that term survivor can be a mixed bag for some people, but I think that when you've been through this journey, you definitely have survived it. It's not a simple moment. It
Yeah.
is an ordeal. So let's talk about survival from what you recommend and the key areas that you like to focus on.
Well, you know what there's always the basics, and it's not for survive, it's for prevention and survival. And
Right.
women bring their daughters to me, women whose mothers or aunts or sisters had breast cancer come to me, and they're like, I need to know what to do. And besides eat right, get movement, get sleep, manage your stress. Those are all common things. And other thing is living with the light and dark cycles means it's a lot. It means a lot, because when you change your light dark rhythms, it increases the risk of cancer as well as many other illnesses. But I also like to focus a lot on toxins and detoxification. I mean, I spent probably 25 years, or over 20 years, in occupational and environmental medicine. And I learned a lot about toxins and how to prevent exposure and remove exposures. But what bothered me there was not as much emphasis on treatment once you were exposed, because it was, so I like to look at, your body can take something that's not harmful and turn it into something harmful. There's
Really?
internal, yes, and then there's external. And a lot of it has to do with your lifestyle, your genetics, your enzymes, your diet. So I like to focus on internal and then external.
Okay, so let's start with, I'm just writing about the external right now, but you want to start, I'm taking notes for everyone to see
Oh, good,
afterwards.
good. Well,
Lifestyle, external exposure, lifestyle, enzymes, what else?
genetics,
Genetics, right?
diet, yeah.
Right. Okay, go right ahead to
So,
internal.
so our liver, we're exposed to over 200 toxins a day. And if you took a newborn's blood, they'd have 200 toxins in it. A newborn, just not even exposed yet. And a lot of the toxins are fat soluble. And even if you've been eating clean for 10, 20 years, every toxin you've been exposed to since utero gets stored in your fat and your bone marrow. And a lot of women around the time of perimenopause and menopause, when breast cancer rises, or these are when cancer becomes much more prevalent. Some of it's toxic overload. So we have to love our livers. We have to look at the liver, and I'm a big fan of detoxification.
Me too.
Yeah. So I do the Dutch test on everyone because it tells me a lot. Do you do that as well?
I do the Dutch test, but if a woman is on an aromatase inhibitor or tamoxifen, you're wasting your money.
Exactly. And
So, ladies, if you're out there listening to this and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I got to get in touch with one of these doctors, I got to do the Dutch test. If you're on an AI or tamoxifen, it's not relevant.
exactly.
But I have had women go off of those medications for, I think it takes about 3 weeks in order to get a right and accurate reading, and then we do a Dutch test, and then they go back on the hormone blocking medication.
Yeah,
But that
I
needs
see
to
a lot of people wasting people's money by
yeah,
testing everything without understanding, you need something there to measure.
right,
So the liver can take, and some women don't know that even if they're not on hormones, they can get breast cancer because you're making estrogen in your fat and adrenal glands in menopause, and and that estrogen is not the fun estrogen that makes you, sexy and moist and protects bone and brain and lipids. It's a more inflammatory form, and it can turn into a more growth oriented form in your breast. So you're making estrogens, and your liver is going to take any of the estrogens you make. There are 3 kinds, and it can turn it's just, think of it like sorting your garbage. You have a clean, recyclable garbage, not really going to, you still want to get rid of it, but it's not going to stink up the house. You've got this dirty, stinky, toxic stuff. You want to get it out as soon as possible. And then you've got something in between. So those enzymes that sort the garbage, so to speak, the 4-hydroxyestrogen is very damaging to DNA.
right.
And women who've had a high, and the 2-hydroxyestrogen is more benign, 16 is somewhere in between. What you need to know is the balance of all of those, which you can see on the Dutch test, can determine your cancer risk. When they did studies on women who had breast cancer or a family history of breast cancer, and I've seen this in my practice as well, they had high 4-hydroxyestrogen, and the women who never had a history of breast cancer or a family history of breast cancer had higher 2-hydroxyestrogen. Women with osteoporosis tend to have low 16. So what they found was the ratio, the higher the 4-hydroxyestrogen to the 2, that ratio was a biomarker for the detection of breast cancer. So the thing is, once you know that, there are things that you can do. We can sort the garbage differently. We can help your liver enzymes move you in a better direction. And, that's why they call it the broccoli pathway, right? Broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower.
Right.
Cruciferous vegetables help you make less 4-hydroxy, more 2-hydroxy. But I also supplement because.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. I mean, DIM, diindolylmethane, which is a derivative of I3C, indo-3-carbinol, is very protective. It accelerates making that good, clean, recyclable garbage, so to speak, right? Then resveratrol and N-acetylcysteine, short is long for NAC. These protect your DNA, and so does sulforaphane. So I tend to use combo products that have all of these so that you can metabolize your estrogen in a safer way.
Hold on for just a second, excuse me. If you're on tamoxifen, DIM is contraindicated.
Yeah.
So you don't, and also as we're talking, you're gonna go on the internet, you're gonna find these products, and I want to encourage everybody not to do that, because you'll be wasting your money. Dr. Lorraine and I'm sure, have very specific companies that we recommend, that we know are making these supplements to pharmaceutical quality standards. So please don't go buying off the counter from Amazon. You'll buy the wrong products and you'll waste your money.
And it's an important point about DIM, because I have a very different population. They come to me, it's like, I don't want to be on tamoxifen, I'm miserable. I make them make that decision on their own.
Of course.
Who says, yes, you should, or no, you shouldn't, because everybody's risk factors are different. Everybody's fear level is different. Everybody's pressures are different. So that's what I use for prevention. And that's what I use for people not on tamoxifen.
Right. And many people with, there's this breast cancer index test that we're using now, and there's the Oncotype if you have DCIS to see what your risk factor is. There's also the Mammoprint, but also many people who are working with integrative physicians take tamoxifen and an AI at a reduced dosing, but that needs to be had, conversation needs to be had in conversation with the integrative practitioner you're working with and with your oncologist. So please, nobody just listen to this conversation and stop taking your medication and start
Absolutely.
taking DIM. It's a mistake.
I totally agree. But you can still have broccoli, cauliflower, kale.
And you can still take, resveratrol. So do we want to talk about sulforaphane and NAC? Do we want to talk about companies that we recommend who make these products or not?
Sure. I mean, we can. I tend to use a lot of orthomolecular zymogen designs for health. Those are, and then when I can get them, maybe pure encapsulations or metagenics. There are some hard to get things that, or specialty products that I'll look up the companies. What are your favorites?
I use Designs for Health, Zymogen, Natura Formulations, company made by Donnie Yance, or Herbal Medicine. He's an expert in integrative, and he's the CEO of Madiri Foundation in Ashland, Oregon, and the Madiri Academy, who taught me everything I know about how to work with cancer. But ladies, I will put a link to all of these a few companies on my Facebook page and my Facebook group. You can get them through my account, and I want to make sure that if you're a member of my community, you are buying the right products. Okay, so just
absolutely, it's so important because I've seen really bad side effects from poor products. A cheap product can cost you in the long run.
Yeah. Somebody had sugar in their curcumin in one of my groups.
And sugar feeds cancer.
Yeah, exactly. I said you need to get your money back from that company and throw it out immediately. That was alarming. Anyway, I'm sorry. So go ahead, Dr. Lorraine.
So, and then the other thing is, once you have the garbage sorted, you need to get rid of it. And that's the COMT enzyme. The other ones are the CYP enzymes. The COMT enzyme takes that garbage, puts it in a bag, helps you get rid of it. And I have to say that many people came to me after the diagnosis of breast cancer, or they had a family history of breast cancer, and some of them wanted to go on hormones. So I always do this before I decide.
Oh, I'm opposed to that 100%.
Well, I'm not, and I see the literature is very, very different. And I have people I've been following for 30 years with a family history, because you know what? A lot of it is lifestyle. And if you take care of all these other things, the risk is much lower. And I'm actually been asked by 3 organizations to teach, because I study the studies and I put together this big synopsis of hormone studies where, a lot of the things were debunked. The risk of breast cancer and hormones was so overblown. So that's another conversation.
Yeah, we'll talk about that offline, right, because I know about all of this, and I've attended conferences. And if you do a deep dive into the study, sometimes you see where they they push this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But I think women who are very miserable and have a poor quality of life. I've never give hormones to anybody who has breast cancer or had breast cancer.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, no. Yeah. Family history. History. So a lot of women come to me because their mothers, their sisters had it. No, I don't give it to women with breast cancer. That scares me. I took that oath, do no harm. So yes, we're in agreement there.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And then, the COMT enzyme, which gets rid of not only your toxic estrogen metabolites and the benign estrogen metabolites, which you want to get rid of anyway. They also, a lot of times in perimenopause and menopause, women have a lot of anxiety. It also gets rid of the neurotransmitters like the adrenaline, the epinephrine, the norepinephrine. So these two go hand in hand. So methylated B vitamins, maybe SAMe, will speed up that enzyme and help you get rid of the garbage. So I'm always doing that kind of testing to make sure you're in good balance there.
I love SAMe, and a lot of people don't know about it, and I think it's a really important product. Now, the companies that make that are Allergy Research and Designs for Health.
Yeah, Zymogen also has a
Zymogen. I love Zymogen.
Yeah, okay, I tend to use Zymogen more.
Because you're in Florida, and they're in Florida.
Well, it's not because of that. Sometimes the Designs for Health products have more things in it, and I have people who are sensitive, so I want to go as pure as possible with people who are sensitive. So when they have these extra ingredients, I'm not always I don't start people off on that, but I love their products. I use them a lot.
Yeah, me too.
You know, the other piece, you know, just think of your body like a car wash. You know, everything gets into your stomach, goes into the liver, gets processed, and the liver makes bile. And people only know bile that all it does is it helps you digest your fat, but it does a lot more. It's antibacterial. So, you know, if you don't have bile, bile kills bad bacteria. It's really a wonderful thing. Plus, it binds the toxin, like these metabolites, it's going to bind them so that when you move your bowels, you get rid of it. So if you have a bad first of all, if you don't have bile flow, people end up with things like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. They don't digest their fats well. They have gas and bloating. They tend to have bacterial overgrowth, but they can also help make you reabsorb. If you have bad microbiome, it takes away the bile, binds that estrogen metabolite and to get rid of it. And it's like decoupling a train. So it uncouples it and then you reabsorb it. So you want to make sure your microbiome is good and your bile is flowing.
And we are easily able to test the health of your microbiome.
Yes.
And number one. And number two, if you've been through antibiotic treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, most people, by the time they come to see someone such as myself or Dr. Lorraine, will have a disrupted gut microbiome just from life. Do you find that true?
Oh, absolutely. And anybody that, you know, I do a lot of hormone replacement therapy. And like I said, our population is somewhat different. When I have somebody with active cancer, I send them to somebody like you because you study that like nobody's business. I do it before and after. And I know I've had people who were nutrition coaches and they did all the studies, et cetera. They studied a lot and they think they know everything about diet and microbiome. And I just say, look, I just want to test, you know, I'm not doubting you. I want to test. And you know what? People who've had the trouble, they've had a very bad microbiome. And what you feed your body is going to attract different people. Like the kind of party you have, if you have beer and chips and soda and burgers and fries, you're going to attract a different crowd than if you had lean protein, fresh fruits and vegetables.
A vegetable platter with some organic hummus that we made, tzatziki, right?
It's a different crowd. You're going to attract a different crowd. So who do you want to feed? Do you want to feed those bacteria that are going to take that beautiful bile carrying all your toxins out, break it off, reabsorb the stuff, and they also like a high fat, high protein, high processed foods, high sugar diet is going to feed that bad microbiome. So what you feed your body is also feeding that microbiome, and it can take those bile acids and make secondary bile acids that are actually toxic and increase the risk of cancer.
That nobody talks about these secondary bile acids, ladies, and this is a really important component. So when you hear it all starts with the gut, we're sort of not exaggerating, right?
No, not at all. They all have bad microbiomes, and you've got to reestablish. You know, I detox every person. You know, I never forgot a patient that came to me. She was we're out of control. Then she ended up with breast cancer and had a double mastectomy at age 47. And she was miserable. She came to me after all of that. And she thought, like, is this like how I'm going to be the rest of my life? You know, I detoxed her. I taught her how to eat for her microbiome, for cancer prevention. I gave her some of the supplements. And you know what? She felt like $1 million.
Yeah, it doesn't take that long, right?
No, it doesn't.
And it's not hard when you're working with someone such as myself or Dr. Lorraine, because we really understand, and this is what you don't get when you go to Dr. Google. We understand how to start. Where do you enter the process? And then how do you layer the treatments? That you cannot gather from Dr. Google. That comes with years of working with people. I don't like to use the word patients, working with people and really studying, right? It's not something.
Absolutely. It's a lot of experience because, I used to defer, okay, you studied nutrition, I'll take your word for it. But now I'm like, you know what? Everybody does things differently.
Yeah.
And I really now want to check off all the boxes. I want to make sure we haven't overlooked anything. And sure enough, I was found something, right?
Especially true if you're one of these people who come to one of us and you have like 7 things the matter. And, you've seen many physicians and everybody's done a little bit here and a little bit there, and you're still not feeling well. And so that, is what we both specialize in, complex cases where people have seen other practitioners and you're still not well. But Lorraine does a lot of prevention, and I do a lot of, you've already been diagnosed with breast cancer. Let's help you recover your health and help you get your sparkle back so you're not in fear all the time, wondering, when is this going to come back? And it's just a little bit different, but
every little thing counts. And that's why you want to look at your liver, how you process, you want to look at the bile, you want to eat bitter foods that gets the bile flowing. And if you've had, a lot of women had their gallbladder removed, and those I give, ox bile or tutka, because you got to keep continuing to detox all the time. 100%. And, you can, that enzyme that bad bugs make, you can block the enzyme with calcium D-glucarate. So I look at that in the stool, and then you can eat, fruits and vegetables like lettuce, cabbage, oranges, apples, Brussels sprouts that have glucaric acid that also block that enzyme, so that this way your bile is working for you, not against you. And then go ahead.
If you're on tamoxifen, you can't really eat a lot of oranges or grapefruit. And so what I do is I give women modified citrus pectin instead.
I love modified citrus pectin. I put a lot of my post-breast cancer patients, because like I said, people come to me after the fact, on Pectisol. I love it.
Me too.
I love it, because we're going to get to some of the external stuff, and Pectisol is wonderful for chelating metals.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about chelating metals. And
well, there's I want to mention one more thing.
Go right ahead.
The internal, the thing that I see often, constipation.
Oh, 100%.
You cannot get rid of your toxins if you're constipated.
And one other thing, if you think you're not constipated because you're going to the bathroom every day or every other day, I hear this. I always ask, how do you move your bowels? I'm fine. And I go, okay, what does that mean? Because I'm fine doesn't necessarily mean what's happening. I want a detailed description. Oh, I go every day. I go, okay, well, that's not fine. And if you go every day and you're only eliminating once, that's also not fine.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be eliminating one major time and then 2 or 3 little minor events, right?
Yes. You get a 46% decrease risk of breast cancer when you go 3 times a day. I tell people at least it should look like a snake, at least the size of your forearm. You want a lot of fiber, because fiber really decreases the risk of breast cancer by at least 12%.
And fiber, ladies, I have to mention this, is not Metamucil.
Yeah.
We got to mention this. People come in and, oh, my doctor, I have gut problems. They put me on Metamucil. Here's a piece of paper. Metamucil is like putting this in your intestines. Please. No Metamucil, no Citrusel. That's not fiber. Fiber is eating a carrot or juicing or taking, putting in your smoothie, chia seeds or crunched up organic dark flax seeds or, steamed vegetables. That's fiber. You don't get fiber out of an over-the-counter jar that you get from CVS or Walgreens.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of ground flax meal, and I know Consumer Labs just did major testing on some brands that had cadmium, and cadmium increases the risk of breast cancer. So I tell people buy the Spectrum ground flax.
Yes, I think that you should actually buy the whole flaxseed and then take a mortar and pestle to it, because
Yeah.
flaxseed is a very sensitive oil. And if it sits there, it's already ground. We don't know if it's been exposed to heat or not.
Mhm.
So just buy the whole dark seeds. They have more linoleic acid in them. Keep them in a jar in your refrigerator, and then take a mortar and pestle and go pound, pound, pound to 2 tablespoons, and then put them in your
That's better.
smoothie.
I mean, that is better. Some women don't want to grind, but it has to be ground because otherwise it's not releasing the
Right.
linoleic acid that you want to, and it's not releasing the fibers so that it can bind things. So I really am a big proponent of that.
Yeah, and it takes a few extra seconds, but it's few extra seconds that can really keep you from ending up with a serious
Oh,
disease.
totally, totally.
So all these little things that we're talking about, they really add up. And the key is to be organized in how you layer things in and how you do them. And I actually have people make up their smoothies in these little glass jars beforehand. And then all they need to do is take the flaxseed, pound it, add it to the blender, and then put in a little bit of probiotic powder along with maybe a quarter cup of blueberries, and they're good to go. But making that stuff up with the chia and the protein powder and the quercetin ascorbate powder and the D-ribose and maybe some other herbs beforehand, and the green powder that many people are using has spinach in it, and it's not always healthiest for you. What do you think about green powder, Lorraine?
You have to really be careful because a lot of it has been found to be contaminated. It's, there's, even if you eat organic, and this is really what I want to get at, your air is polluted and it's bathed on these organic
Yeah.
greens. It gets into the air, it's in the water, it's in the soil, you're breathing it in. And once you concentrate these, if they're not purified, you're getting a high dose of toxins. So and then you also kale has been shown to have high levels of thallium, and I'm not saying to avoid them. Spinach can
Oxalates.
oxalates can be damaging, but you have to be balanced and reasonable. Don't
Yes.
go overboard with anything, but just know your products too. And that's why working with an integrative physician or naturopath is very, very important, because this is what we do. We study everything. I mean, I'm a nerd. I can't help it.
People say, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm in PubMed for a few hours." And they go,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
this is
I
having a
research
good time."
everything,
Having
right?
a good time, right? You
Right.
start one article and it leads you to another, and the next thing you know, 2 hours have gone
Yeah.
by.
I mean, I've been blogging for about 15 years now. And, I don't do chat GPT. I go down a rabbit hole because usually I blog because I've come across a patient that didn't respond the same way that most other people did. And then I just study and study and study. And then it turns into a blog because I said, if I learn it, I want to teach it so that it helps more people.
That's
And the
great.
thing that we can't get away from is microplastics.
Okay,
Oh
let's talk
my God.
about microplastic.
They're found in absolutely every crevice on earth. It's found in the high Andes, in the Alps, in the purest water, because it's carried by the air. Plastics break down into microplastics, and that doesn't go away. I was pretty shocked to learn that a bottled water from a very pristine source was tested by Consumer Lab and was found to have microplastics. And I was just like, oh my God. So they have a lot of plastics have a lot of chemicals in them, and the chemicals can disrupt your hormones. They also attract bacteria, viruses, and metals. Metals. So the best thing to do is try to avoid plastics and takeout containers because they're all coated with plastics, and cups that you go when you get a takeout drink. If I would go out for coffee, I'd bring my own.
Me too. Me too.
I bring my own. I never store anything in plastic, and absolutely never, 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 never heat anything in
Oh
plastic.
my God, God forbid. Now, I'll tell you a story about me and plastics. You know this, and we know this. And then I used to notice this phrase. I used to love to buy this one type of organic salsa. And then I was studying plastics. And by the time we finished eating the salsa, when I was washing it to put in the recycling container, I looked and I went, oh my goodness, the entire inside of this plastic container is now red. And then I put one and one together to make two. And it's like the acid from the tomatoes and the vinegar and the lemon juice in the salsa or the lime juice ate away at the inside lining of the plastic jar and container. And that was the last time I ever bought that plastic, that salsa. So now, first of all, I buy as little as possible in plastic. If I have to buy something in plastic, I take it home immediately and put it in a glass container. If I buy something in a jar, I make sure it says, I try to buy all tomato products in a jar if I don't put up my own tomatoes during the summer. But if I have to get something in a can, it says BPA free, but then there's still BPSs. So, there comes a point where you have to like live your life and you do get your rhythms down and you just do the best you can. But eating, people come in and they go, oh, I'm drinking, the bottled water. Now, we don't know how hot that water got.
Yeah.
Being transported in the big trucks from where they took it out of the stream, supposedly, to you're buying it now from Costco or Safeway or 7-Eleven, God forbid, and then you're drinking it. So never, ever plastic. It's better to buy a water filter, and they're expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. And, they leach out antimony, which is cancer causing, causes many types of cancer, and phthalates that are hormone disruptors. So, and they've been found, look, they haven't been found, they've been found in human lungs, but no one has yet linked them to cancer, but some of the chemicals in them have been linked to cancer. So the thing that I worry about too is that they attract metals, and some of these metals, they call them metalloestrogens. They act on the estrogen receptor like it's estrogen, but it's not estrogen. So even though you think you're not on estrogen or you're on estrogen blocking agents, these activate the estrogen receptors. And these are things like aluminum, antimony, arsenite, barium, chromium, certain kinds of chromium, not the chromium in the supplements, cobalt, copper, lead, mercury, nickel, selenite, vanadate, and the soil, rocks, they all contain some of this stuff, and especially cadmium, and be careful with some of your, protein that you eat, because some of them are also sprayed. Some of their feed is sprayed with arsenic or things with cadmium or arsenic in it. So be very, very careful, because cadmium functions like estrogen and it plays a role in breast cancer.
So this is why I recommend women and people never eat anything that, especially produce. Especially chicken or red meat, meaning pork, beef, or lamb. If it's not farm to table, it's like not going into your mouth. And it's that people go out to eat and they think, well, it doesn't matter, I'll just eat it this one time. I would rather you go out to eat less often and go to a restaurant that serves farm to table food. And that way you don't need to worry if you order a piece of meat, because I'm not opposed to eating red meat. If this is the big caveat, it has to be farm to table. Otherwise, not only do they spray the food, they give them IV, in IM injections of antibiotics and hormones, and the meat, that the fat in that meat is very estrogenic and filled with toxins. So it's not worth it.
Yeah. Right? So we're of the same, we believe in the same things,
100%.
And I want to make sure people have enough of their minerals, because zinc alleviates some heavy metal toxicities. Selenium is protective against cadmium toxicity. Vitamin C actually can chelate lead, and it's an antioxidant. It decreases the oxidative damage that metals do. Pre-treatment with vitamin E has protective effects against cadmium toxicity. And things like garlic, ginger, onion, they're helpful for bile flow, but they're also helpful antioxidants and mild chelators, and they prevent the absorption of cadmium. So, You want that. You want some of these things. I usually recommend a multi because you're getting a little bit of everything. And I'll do some testing to make sure you have adequate minerals, because they're really important, because they can displace the metals. And then you want a good probiotic, because even some strains of lactobacillus has been protective against cadmium toxicity. So, making sure you have good nutrition, adequate minerals, fiber, cruciferous vegetables, good quality produce, and
Water,
organic
filter the water, right?
water. Some people can go even further with, I filter water. I use reverse osmosis and I remineralize. Some people, super sensitive, they can distill their water and remineralize.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to
It's a hard
distill.
thing. Yeah.
I use the Aqua True water filter, and I think it's great.
I have an under sink one, and it's really wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you hear all of these things that we're talking about, you can get really overwhelmed and not even know where to start, which is a problem. What I recommend is you start with the area that you think you're having the most problem with, or you have the most resistance to.
Yes.
Because that's the one where that's the worst offender.
Yeah.
And that's the one where you need to put your intention and attention into first. And you just work on that for like a month.
Yeah.
Because it takes up to 100 days to get a new habit established. And how we eat, the supplements we take, how we start our morning, they're all habits. And habits, when you create a new one, it takes energy to pick yourself up, and you're starting a new path. So it takes a lot of energy to create a new path. So you just need to be gentle with yourself and reach out to someone such as myself or Dr. Lorraine for a consultation, because in the long run, it saves you time, and you know that you're being guided properly towards the right level of health in whatever your health concern is, right?
Yeah, because people come, they're tired, they're overwhelmed, they just throw their hands up. I don't know what to do anymore, and they all say, I eat healthy, but not necessarily healthy for them. I get that all the time. And that's why now I do not accept that, even though I believe them, because they're eating what the marketers tell them are healthy, right?
Well, they eat the standard American diet a little better. I had a woman with breast cancer. I just did a 30-minute transformation call with her, and she said, well, I've removed a lot, but I have my 3 biscotti every day at 11 o'clock with my coffee. And, I said, well, I tried to be gentle. It's like, let's be really honest that you're sort of joking yourself, right? And she started laughing. She said, yeah, I guess I am. But I don't want to give them up. I said, well, it's a choice. I mean, keep the cancer gas tank on empty, or put some gas in the gas tank with sugar and gluten. I mean, what can we give you instead of these 3 biscotti that you're eating every day, right?
Yeah.
Or cookies or whatever, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can't underestimate the power of mindset.
Let's talk about mindset.
Is huge. And I remember I was a newbie doctor, and we would do rounds in the morning, and, we had to present the case to the attending physician, and everybody would be sitting around the table, and you'd put up the blood work, you'd put up the x-rays, you all discuss. And we had this woman who had breast cancer, and she had a recurrence. And, from looking at all her labs and everything, we almost had her in the grave. It was just looked dire, right? And we all were like, oh God, shaking our heads, because, I had met her, and she was a spark of life, and just a lovely, lovely woman. All of us walked in the room. We saw her sitting there glowing with this positive attitude. And we all just were like, shrugged our shoulders, and we're like, you know what? We're not God. We're not God. You're God. Your mindset. This woman lived a very long time after that. So don't ever let anybody take away your hope and your control. Never, never, never. I learned that lesson early in my career, and I've never forgotten that. And another patient that I thought, after being up all night long, IV came out. This woman was, again, she had cancer, and it just, I was young and didn't know. And I thought, oh, she's never going to survive. I'm doing all this work. But then a month later, I see her in the clinic and she looked great. So never give up hope.
I think that when you go to a doctor, one of the first determining factors is, are they engaged in a conversation with you, or are they telling you what to do? Because you always have options, and education and options is empowerment. And the name of my program is Empowered Against Recurrence, empowered through treatment, empowered through breast cancer. It's always you're the boss. You're the bossette. I like to put a feminine perspective on it. You are the person who is the determining factor in the trajectory or the course or the path of your illness and your chronic disease. Breast cancer is a chronic disease. So we need to begin to think about, well, how am I going to manage this chronic disease? How am I going to get into conversation with this chronic disease so that the cancer cells get back in line and know that they're not the boss, that I'm the boss.
Yeah.
And, when you begin to have these conversations with your cancer, it's amazing what your body and your mind show up and tell you. I mean, and that's the beginning of real healing. So I love that you talked about how somebody's blood work looked very dire, and then you went in and they were there glowing.
Yeah. We knew this woman, she had the will, she had the attitude, she had the fortitude, and you just know with that, that's a winning formula.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add a good, healthy diet, getting some sleep, managing your stress, but managing your mindset, managing your attitude, it's a stressful diagnosis. Let's face it.
Yes. Getting through the treatment is.
Yeah. But I had a 95-year-old patient that was a survivor, and she was driving from Florida to Maine.
Oh my goodness. She was driving from Florida to Maine.
Oh, yes. God bless, on her own. Yes. She was an inspiration because she's
going to be me, but I'm not going to be driving. I'm just going to be 95 and spiffy. Right.
Spiffy. She was spiffy. Let me tell you, there was nothing that this woman couldn't do. And 95 years old, and she survived cancer. That was, probably when she was in her 50s.
And cancer treatment in those days was much more brutal.
Yes, it was.
Now, I mean, it was like, oh my goodness, many women died from the level of cancer treatment they were getting then.
But a lot of what we talked about seemed overwhelming. But you know what? How difficult it is to have some cruciferous vegetables, take a few supplements,
right?
Just get a good night's sleep. When you work with somebody, we make this mindless for you. It's just a habit, like getting up and brushing your teeth. It sounds complicated, but we take care of the complicated part.
Right.
We look at the testing and we tell you, okay, based on the way your body responds, this is what we're going to do. It's like custom tailoring to you.
Right. One size doesn't fit all. And also I'll tell a very short story. I had a 35-year-old woman who came into my office, and she had on enough perfume that you would think you're at the ground floor of Macy's. And for those of you who are familiar with Macy's, you know that ground floor is the perfume floor, and you walk in and it's like assaults you. And I had a scent-free office, and I had said to her, no perfume. And I said, so what's going on with you in scents? Oh, I love scents. I have the plugins. I have the scent, stuff in the oil. And then this was the cincture. I spray my sofa with Febreze. So for those of you who don't know what that does, it's a very toxic, full-bodied estrogen disruptor. And then her dog would jump up on the sofa. The chemical would get on the dog hair. She'd pet the dog slept with her. And she had this diagnosis of unexplained infertility. Mm-hmm. So I said, you don't have unexplained infertility. You have too many chemicals in your home problems.
Yeah.
And she was thinking about spending $40,000 on IVF. So I said, so go home and take a photo of every single product that you use on your body and in your cleaning at home. And there were 29 products there.
Wow.
29, I'm not kidding. So I said, okay, here's the deal. You have to take a week off from work. We have to wash all of your linens in eco laundry, your towels, what you sleep. She
Mhm.
had to throw out her sofa because we couldn't detoxify it.
Wow.
She, got all new eco body products, and we gave her some supplements, and we did some testing, very simple testing. And 3 months later, instead of $40,000 of IVF, she was pregnant. So, and now she's had 3 children. So I know this isn't the world of breast cancer, but this is the world of toxins in your home environment and how you get to control that 100%.
Right. And I have to tell people you have to be in a state of detox all the time.
Oh, that's good. I like that phrase.
200 chemicals a day. That's a lot for your liver to process. And you know what? These kinds of chemicals make your liver process the estrogens to the very top forms.
Right. They process the other chemicals first, and then they don't have enough energy left to process the estrogen into the healthy form, and then you get a buildup of the toxic.
Yeah, they do accelerate the enzyme CYP1B1 that makes 4-hydroxyestrogen, the toxic form that damages DNA. So always be in a state of detox. That's why I talk about the liver, the bile, the elimination through stool. Then there's hydration and eliminating what you can through the kidneys, and good deep breaths.
Love good deep breaths. So Lorraine, thank you. It's been such an honor and a pleasure and an exciting conversation to have you here. And if women want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
howtoliveyounger.com. I have 2 separate websites. One's for education, howtoliveyounger.com, but then it can take you to the medical website, vibranceforlife.com. So they interconnect, but it's just more of a board state regulation to separate them.
Great URLs, everyone. And Dr. Lorraine is just a wonderful integrative practitioner, physician, and you can't do any better than this.
Same for you, Carol.
Thank you so much.
We really think alike, and it sounds like we have similar training.
We do, except I'm an ND and you're an MD, but they're very similar. But anyway, ladies, it's been an honor to have Dr. Lorraine here with us today. I hope you listen to this. I'm going to put the links to Designs for Health and Zymogen. You need a referral from a practitioner, so you'll need to reach out to me for that. But everything is possible, and you just need to go about it a step at a time. So this is Carol Lourie signing off for now, and it's a great way to start the week with this conversation. And thank you so much, Dr. Lorraine, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Bye for now.